So, very slowly, come to lie on your back and rest. And because you're doing it more frequently now, those of you that are attending my classes, and I love seeing you, notice, do you always do it the same way? Or can you come to the ground a little differently? And if you do something a little differently, what is it you changed? And you listen to your contact. You listen to your breathing. And what are the things that grab your attention? It's where your focus goes. Now, throughout this past week lessons, although it was the whole of you, the focus was intentionally, do you know where your hips are? So I'm not going to give that up, but I'm going to take the attention to another area, because when this portion of us can begin to soften, it makes life so much easier. Listen to your breathing and the sensations where there is a filling, an expansion, a movement that moves outward, whether it's from your chest forward, or the back of you into the floor, or the sides of you expanding in each direction, or something that happens in the area where the upper lobes of your lungs reside. If you don't know, don't worry about it, but it's the upper lobes. And then again, even though we don't have lungs all the way down in our pelvic floor, how does the breath and the movement of our lungs within the rib basket move other things to enable a sensation that goes so much deeper into our lower belly and our pelvic floor with the breath? I like to refer to it as a container. And different modalities, different focuses give it a name. Torso. The idea of the core is too limiting for me, because it just speaks about certain muscles. But what about the whole skeletal structure? And what happens to it if the core is held tight? And now slowly bring your feet to stand. Listen to that whole process. What happens? And now slowly cross your right leg over your left. And although we played with different patterns, begin to allow the left leg to tilt inward to the right and then return. The most important thing is the journey of listening, how you roll through your pelvis. What happens to the left foot? Do you start to transition onto a different edge of the foot than when you are standing? What happens to your lower back? You follow that movement all the way up and feel, where is it that if my fingers were like a little ladybug crawling up me, where is the area as you tilt the knees to the right and then restore, that you feel movement slowly followed? This little spiral, does it come to your shoulder blades? Is there a relationship that starts to draw your attention that something in your shoulder girdle is beginning to shift its relationship with the floor. And you just feel what that's like. How far through you do you feel, whether it's small or it's a big movement? And if it's small, is it small because of this curiosity, of this easy, smooth quality, or is there a concern that if I go further, something is talking to me and I don't want to aggravate it? You're just listening. You want to understand why you do what you do. If the left leg tilts more to the right, but without falling, can you feel that the right leg, traveling passively, begins to weigh heavier, compresses heavier onto the outside edge of the left leg? And then you come back, it changed. It's not about doing anything with the right leg, it's a passenger. But it's noticing that too is transferring weight because the left leg is carrying on its back, so to speak, the right leg. And then slowly uncross your legs and pause for a moment and rest. It's a very familiar movement. We've been doing them. It's not that each lesson brings a new movement into your repertoire. Especially when the movements are familiar, how do we not just go right back into our habit? Oh, I know what this is. We're doing this again? I've had people complain about that. Can't we do new stuff? This stuff is the rudiments of what build to the language and movement, like the alphabet. We had to learn our ABCs first before we could even begin to start putting them together to make sense, to make a word. And slowly bring your feet back to stand. And now cross your left leg over your right. And do that similar exploration, but it's not the same because it's a different leg and how you organize and a different hip joint. And in this relationship, your hips are pretty constrained. One hip has a little bit more availability, where the other one is pretty constrained. It's pretty locked down. You just feel, what is it like tilting your knees now to the left and restoring? Feel how you roll across your sacrum onto the left gluteal muscle. Always think, there's a back of my hip joint somewhere in there. I don't want it to hurt, but wow, can I find it? Can I find me, even if it's really deep within? And listen to what happens on your left foot. How does your left ankle relate? And there are many different ways of doing it. So one way is the ankle totally follows the rotation in the foot so that you roll more to the inside edge of your left foot, the outside lifts. We would call this an eversion pattern. And the ankle does a little bit, but it's pretty negligible. And another way is to keep the left foot pretty much molded to the floor. It will reduce the movement, but have the movement happen in the ankle joint. Both are wonderful, but one is more a unit of the foot through the ankle up to the knee, and the other one is a separate articulation in the ankle joint. And they're both correct. You just notice. And then, if that little ladybug were crawling up your spine, your chest, where is it, whatever the range of movement you're doing, that you feel, I feel something transition, my contact, portions of me change how I'm relating to the floor as the left knee tilts with the right as a passenger on the right leg. And then comes back. Listen to how you breathe when you come back, especially if the right knee tilts inward further. And feel how the left leg as a passenger rests on the outside edge of the right leg. And there's a moment when that left leg really gets heavy. You have to take the weight of that left lower leg on the right. How does it support it? And then come back, uncross your legs and rest. Notice your contact with the floor. And even though it was the same movement, can you discern, well, there were areas where it was different, this side to that side. And it was just different. That's how we start to know ourselves, in these little differences. A pitcher, a quarterback, a tennis player, a singer. I mean, you could go into any field. When we know these little things about us, we know how to then work with them so that they don't inhibit us or limit us. They become information. And now very slowly, bring your feet to stand, hip shoulder width apart comfortably. And once, keeping the legs in the vertical, press once into the right foot that sends the right knee away from you. Feel where it transfers your weight. Then release that, and then press into the left foot. And feel that the legs are relatively in the vertical, but the pressure into one foot, then release, and into the other foot, begin to shift the weight through your pelvis. Can you feel it's also traveling up through your spine? What do you notice through your spine, your ribs, your shoulder blades, or even the potential movement in your head? And these are all things to play with. And then rest. Now, with your legs long, unless that's not comfortable. And remember, I really believe, like Ruthie Esalen, comfort rules. Because if it's not, it's something irritating you, even if it's small, that keeps taking your attention. I mean, I joke with my husband, did you get the mosquito coils out and the citronella candles burning if I'm going to come out and hang out on our lovely little patios? Because they will eat me alive in no time. And then it's not fun because I just get this horrible histamine reaction. So I attend to it first. Now with the legs long, bring your arms forward towards the ceiling and bring your hands together. But today I'm going to give a little bit of a different variation. Let your index fingers, the pads of the index fingers, stay pointing towards the ceiling, but allow the rest of your fingers to interlace. Good. And your elbows stay straight. Not locked, but straight. And begin to then direct your interlaced fingers, but the index fingers are touching and pointing forward. Begin to direct your interlaced fingers, your index fingers, without the elbows bending, over to the left, then back to the neutral. Do that a few times. Feel where is the limit. And when you feel the limit, what is it that you do? What is it you do when you feel it's limited? Where do you transfer your weight? Then come back, take your triangled arms in this funnier pattern, a little different, over to the right. Feel where there's the limit. Because for sure, if we bent the elbows, we could take those arms further. But then the movement that I'm asking for in this lesson, in this theme, won't happen. And just begin to explore taking your arms in this fashion. It's sort of the triangle arms, but the hands I decided to interlace. You'll understand why later. Just taking them from one side through the neutral and to the other to compare. What is it you do? What is it you do? And when you feel the limit, that you strive to do a little bit more, what happens through the rest of you? And when you feel you're efforting, what is effort? Effort means a leg lifts or the feet lift off of the ground, or you hold your breath. Where do you transfer your weight? So you just go slower and smaller. And you feel that now you're rolling through your shoulder girdle. Notice if your head follows. And then bring your arms down and rest. So far, these are very familiar for most of you. And that's what happens many lessons. Like I said in the beginning, if each piece of a lesson is a piece of a puzzle. Puzzles are puzzles. They come in all different shapes and sizes and colors. How do we put them together? An alphabet are vowels and consonances. But we put them together in so many different ways to create the artistry of the novels and poetry we have and science we have. And it's how you do it. The what is the alphabet, but then what you do with it, how you create. So I shared last lesson that a new client of mine who works as a psychotherapist shared that this social distancing is a problem. Not that we shouldn't social distance, but the word social distancing is creating a response or reaction in people to feel that being a social being or socializing is negative. And it's affecting people emotionally. So I started with, she's shared physical distancing. That's actually what we're doing. And then you keep thinking of other ways to share. And does it change your state of being, how you think, how you feel? Please bring your feet back to stand, hip shoulder width apart. Bring your arms together, triangled arms, index fingers together. But notice, can you interlace your fingers the opposite, the non-habitual way? I'm going to presume the first way you did it was just habitual. Now those other three fingers that are going to interlace, even the thumbs, are going to go non-habitual. And with your feet standing, slowly begin to take your triangled arms once to the right, back through the middle, and over to the left. And begin to feel, is something starting to articulate, wake up through your feet? And it was happening through your heels for most of you. But is the same thing happening now that you have the feet standing? It might be a clearer relationship because of the shape of your spine. Is the same bias that you might have noticed with your legs long happening when your feet are standing? So let's play with this a little bit. Slowly bring your arms back to the neutral. If you need to bring them down and rest for a moment, do that. And now, lengthen your right leg, and only with the left foot standing and the right leg long, begin to bring the triangled arms, and now you can interlace the fingers either habitually or non-habitually, but that would be something you'd play with too. Begin to take your triangled arms once to the right, back through the middle, and then once to the left. And feel the difference. What happens when you go to the right with your arms? Keep the left knee nonetheless in the vertical. Doesn't mean it doesn't work, it doesn't move. But when you transfer the triangled arms across your chest over to the left, with the left foot standing in the vertical, does it make it as available? Where do you feel something then inhibits? Not that you can't. Good. And then slowly continue the arms going from side to side. Simply change over. Your right foot comes to stand as your left leg goes down. And notice it's the same pattern. What's the difference when you take your triangled arms to the right compared to when you take your triangled arms to the left? Where is something feel freer and easier and simpler? Not that you can't do both, but where is it that it's different? That in one direction, if you don't honor, it won't be as simple. You strive to do more. Where do you effort? Is there any holding of your breath or straining in the long leg or wanting to tilt the other knee, taking it out of the vertical? They're viable movements, both. And then as you continue this, you can begin to slowly, knowing that you're doing it, alternate which leg is standing, but you have to keep, if you change the legs, you have to keep the legs there for a couple of these revolutions and begin to play with what you do with your head. One relationship is to allow your head to roll with the arms. It's as if you could watch your index fingers so that the amount that your arms went to the side, your head rolled. And you feel whether you have the constraint of a standing leg in your way, whether you have a long leg that allows, feel what changed. And where do you feel the change? And then another pattern is to keep your head fixated as if you want to stare at something at your ceiling. Maybe there's a little bug you're watching up there moving, a spider, very slowly. But you don't allow the head really to roll. As you continue the movements, notice from side to side, depending on which leg is standing, which leg is long. You have to do them a few times before you change the legs because it clarifies. First time is sort of like, oh, is this our exit? Second time is like, yes, that was the exit because this is the street we were supposed to turn on. And third time is, yep, see, it's the straight street because that's the house, that's the address. It confirms. And then the third pattern is you take your head in the opposite direction the triangled arms are going. And you just compare. And where do you sense something within you is starting to get a little bit softer and more malleable? And then bring everything down and rest. Listen to your breathing. Listen to the contact of your shoulder blades, the space in between your shoulder blades, the ribs, the spine. Where is it that something has gotten your attention? And maybe it's in your hips. Maybe it's in your lower back. Yeah. Yes. And now slowly, bring your arms towards the ceiling. Take your right hand to rest it underneath your left armpit, and then wrap your left arm over the right to hold on and hook around the right shoulder. The idea is that each hand is searching gently to make some contact with the opposite shoulder blade. And now, pay attention. It's your head, it's your breathing, legs are long. Begin to pull gently with the right hand on the left shoulder blade to begin to roll you to the right. Then let go. Pull with the right hand on the left shoulder blade. The left hand on the right shoulder blade to roll you to the left. And the minute you feel the restriction, your legs are long, listen to where you're transferring weight. Are you transferring weight towards the opposite hip, the one you're rolling away from? Are you transferring weight towards the hip you're rolling towards? If one leg were going to get longer, which leg? You roll once to one side using the shoulder blade, then to the other side. And you compare. When I get to a certain place and it feels like it's hard, do I just pull myself harder? Where are you resisting? Is it in your foot, in an ankle, in your eyes, in your jaw, your tongue? Now, slowly, bring both feet to stand and begin to support yourself using your feet when you feel it would be appropriate, and help yourself as you still pull. The right hand pulls the left shoulder blade to roll you to the right. The left hand pulls the right shoulder blade to roll you to the left. And listen to how you're doing it. Now, if you're one that is preferencing letting the legs tilt to the side, please keep the legs relatively in the vertical. If you are one that is choosing, now I'm going to keep my legs relatively in the vertical, where I feel the knees are going away from me, try the pattern of tilting the knees, because they're both viable patterns. Just notice what you do, and then compare it with the opposite. When you constrain the legs from tilting, and those legs do that same movement of pushing so that the knees are going away from you. So what if someone didn't let the legs tilt now and they tried the other pattern? That's it. That's it. The minute there's the indication that you feel like, no, my knees want to tilt, just don't go further. That's enough, because the area that needs to soften is not when the knees take over. It's not wrong, it's lovely. But remember I shared when the ankle, the knee tilts on the first portion and the foot rolls to the inside edge? It's not as much an articulation as much in the ankle joint. It's in the hip joint. So you're differentiating joints. Good. And now uncross and rest. Notice your contact. Breathing. Length. And now hug yourself the reverse pattern, so it's the left arm that crosses first to go underneath the right armpit. The right arm crosses on top to rest on the top of the left shoulder. But bring one foot to stand, the other leg is long. And you choose which leg, because you will eventually change the pattern. One foot stands, the other leg long, and begin again using the hand on its opposite shoulder blade to roll you. And feel, when is it that one way of doing it just feels simpler and the other one is available, but there's a restriction. And so the movement doesn't go as far through you. One leg is long, the other foot is standing. Unless you're choosing to do it differently. Yeah. And go slower. Go slower. See, the fast is that fast thinking, it's hardwired. That's our pattern. So we can only get better at our pattern unless our pattern is creating some havoc, some irritation, some friction. Then just do it slower to see, does it change the quality of the movement? And then you could also ask, where do my eyes go? If you're rolling your head in the same direction that you are feeling, you're rolling through your chest, through your shoulder girdle, maybe a few times before you change your legs over, have your head go in the opposite direction. You just feel. What's the difference? And it's not a question of pulling harder with your hands. You don't want to get white knuckles. It's just make it easy. And then the third pattern is to don't let your head move. Look at that ceiling in front of you. Find that ladybug, whatever it is on your ceiling, the imaginary ladybug, but stay looking at it. And roll yourself using your hands. Use the standing foot however you feel would be most optimal. What's different? Where could something soften? And then leave that be for a moment and take a rest. Just remember which foot you had standing. That's what you chose. Notice contact. Is something in your container feeling that it can receive the oxygen simpler, easier, fuller? Not only on the inhalation, but maybe you're noticing that before the exhalation, there's a pause. It sort of takes a moment of like that low when the wave rolls into the beach before it changes and it rolls back out. And now, hug yourself and bring the other foot to stand. And the three patterns of how you organize with your head and your eyes. Take your time here because I'm going to change something up in a moment. Just play. If you modify, I'm seeing some lovely modifications, it's wonderful. Feel what you would need to do if you need to modify. Don't strain an effort. The minute you feel you effort, I got to go further, whatever. Don't. What makes us do that? Conditioning, training, habits. Or know you're doing it. Know you're doing it. Good. So now, if you've played with the three different ways of your head rolling in the same direction you're rolling, head rolling in the opposite direction, head staying pretty much back into the floor, not really rolling, but moved as a requirement from the spine. Now, maybe take a pause for a moment. Just rest your intention. Rest your intention and your attention. And maybe as you rest, I'm going to give you one of the little, this is what she's going to have us do. So very slowly, with your head quiet, resting, but without pressing it back into the mat, slowly, but without rolling your head, begin to take your eyes once to the right. The minute you feel that the head would want to come along, don't. Just take the eyes back to the middle, and then take both of your eyes to the left. And look for a smooth quality of movement. That your intention is you keep your head quiet, but the eyes are going to move from the right through the middle to the left. And you're simply asking the question, are they smooth, or do I notice a lot of hops and skips and jumps going on? And then slowly, as you begin to take your eyes to the right, roll your head to the left. As you bring the eyes through the middle, your head returns to the middle. Take your eyes to the opposite side and roll your head to the opposite side. Now the eyes are going to the right and the head to the left. They come back through the center. The eyes go to the left, the head to the right. The minute you feel the movement isn't smooth, maybe my eyes on one side are jumping, the other one they're not. Just go slower, go smaller. But you're taking your eyes and your head in opposition. Good. Bring both feet to stand. Hug yourself. And you can use the pattern that for you feel that's easier. And it has to do with the organization through our shoulder girdle, how we organize. And as you begin to hug yourself, to roll through your shoulder girdle, keep the knees relatively in the vertical, but allow your feet to help you. And choose if you are rolling your head with the movement of rolling to one side, take your eyes in the opposite direction. As everything comes back to the back, and then you go to roll your head through the hugging to the opposite side, let's say right and then to left, your eyes in your head go to the opposite direction. And you're looking more, not for range or speed, quality of movement. If you notice your eyes are dancing and popping and zinging, slow down. When people say to me they were doing lessons and they got symptoms that weren't really comfortable, it was simply how they were doing what they were doing. It wasn't what they were doing, it was how. Too fast, too jerky, disconnected. No wonder they triggered things. And I say over and over, do less, go slower, do it small. And then change over your arms. Maybe lengthen one leg, keep doing the movements, maybe explore taking your head in the opposite direction you're rolling, but still the eyes also go in the opposite direction. And the idea isn't to strive or to struggle or to push to do more, because we're upping the ante, adding in more complications. Can you just go slower and do less and luxuriate so that you really pay attention, you're doing what you intend? And then leave that alone and rest. And now please bring your feet to stand and cross your right leg over your left. And go back and tilt your knees to the right. Notice if that changed. And where did what we've been playing with allow the change? And then, once you bring your knees back to the neutral, could you flip over and cross the left leg over the right? Maybe you just bring both legs into the air, do the flip, then the right foot comes to the floor, and begin to tilt your knees to the left. Did that change? So you could make a dance, I'm saying, when the knees come back to the vertical. How would you organize to bring the knees over the chest, flip them, put the foot that's going to be the initiator to tilt the knees in the opposite direction, and you start to play. I mean, you're choreographing this yourself, finding your timing. Does it become fun? And then pause and rest for a moment. And now, find your triangled arms, but do them with the index fingers pointing to the ceiling and the other fingers interlaced. It's a different way. And now slowly, you choose first. Cross your legs. Do you want your right leg crossed over the left or the left leg crossed over the right? I just gave you a choice. Why are you choosing the one you're choosing? And it's a question. Maybe you go, I could choose either, but maybe you go, well, one feels a little easier. Okay, now, if you crossed your right leg over the left, you're tilting your legs to the right. As you tilt or if you crossed your left leg over the right, you're tilting to the left, okay? You tilt your knees only in that direction right now, but take your triangled arms to the other side. And what do you do with your head? And then you come back. As the triangled arms come back, the knees come back. Did your head move? Notice if you're taking your head with the triangled arms or you're taking your head with the knees. And do that movement a few times, making it simpler, easier. How do you breathe? Maybe upon the initiation of the movement, you exhale, creating the twist, and then you inhale as you restore and come back. Once this one pattern gets a little easier, stay with your legs the way they are, and then when you come back from tilting the way you did, tilt the knees the opposite direction, take your triangled arms in the opposite direction. And notice what your head wants to do. And all I'm asking you to feel is something in the twist through your spine is different when you tilt the knees towards the side of the leg being carried versus the side that the standing leg is starting to roll out. Something changes in how the twist happens through your spine. Feel that. And we played with this alternation. And then you get to play with, oh my gosh, where is my head going? If your head is going with your hands, begin when you come back to the neutral in either direction, have your head go with your knees. So now you're making a double twist, but it's different. One side, the twist is different than when you tilt your knees to the other direction, how the twist occurs, and therefore also in your neck, because that's where the other twist is happening. You go slow so that in a twisting pattern, you don't jerk yourself. You don't zug yourself. You have control. You can reverse it at any moment or get a sense that I need to do something there to allow it. And then pause and rest. Bring everything down and rest. And now when you bring your feet to stand, remember the way you crossed? Cross them the other way. And when you bring your triangled arms to the ceiling, but you are pointing the index fingers, can you remember how you interlace the other fingers? Interlace them the other way. So you have to, what did I do? If you're not sure what you do, just do what you think you did last time, and then, that's what I did. Then you know, okay, I did that. I probably did my habitual. Do your non-habitual. And you know the movement pattern now. First, start tilting the knees in the direction where the knee that is being carried as a passenger, that's the direction the knees go. The arms will go in the opposite direction. Notice where you want to take your head and your eyes. And you come back. And you just feel the twist. There is a twist to lengthen. Can you think that a twist isn't going to shorten and crimp? It's going to lengthen. Go slow. It's like you start to get a yeast bread or the taffy that is going to be Turkish taffy that you twist. My dad used to have a store also in Pennsylvania, and he would pass this Brown's farm where they also had these machines that made taffy. And they were these huge machines that would twist the taffy. And then they would cut it off and they'd give it to him. And it would come home in this big, huge chunk that was twisted. I always remember that. But you want to twist where that taffy is warm and luxurious. And you're allowing versus you're forcing. And then begin to make some change. Is the change in the way your head is rolling? Is it going to follow the knees instead of the arms, or the arms instead of the knees? Or might it be you start to move your eyes within the socket in the opposite direction the head is rolling? You see how we up the ante. And it can be mind-boggling for some. So you all rest, or if you decide, this is too much for me, go back to what was just right, just enough. And then when you're ready, give it up and rest. A long time ago, when I would go into Starbucks, whether I was leaving the gym or I was at another venue and it was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be working a lot more hours. I need my other little espresso. I would always like my espresso black. I don't like stuff in it. But other people do like stuff in it. They like the macchiatos and some people would say, oh no, just give me the regular 3 pumps. And other people would say, I want 7 pumps and 6 shots of espresso in their venti, whatever they call it. I would just be sitting there going, but some like it hot, some like it cold, some like it really sweet, some like it really salty. We have our differences. But notice what is familiar or comfortable for you. And then think, where could one little thing I change that's hardwired in me? And you just do a little, and then you rest, so as not to go into a brain freeze or trigger anything. And feel your contact. Listen to your breathing. And if you had to think, what is the one area? Yeah, my hips are involved in this. But what's the one area that seems to feel a little bit, I don't know, softer or wider? Where would you indicate? Where would you put your hands? Yeah. Yep. Now, some put specifically to an area where they've been symptomatic, but travel into that whole apparatus and where else something had to get soft. And now very slowly, how would you use whatever portion of the lesson that made sense to you? You could use it to roll yourself to come up to stand. Think about it. Would it be bringing the feet to stand? Would it be simply rolling? Would it be hugging? Would it be triangled arms to reach to the floor? Yeah. All of the different ways that by magic, maybe if the knees are tilting, the one hand, if you were hugging yourself, would move away from the shoulder blade and reach outward onto the floor. Maybe it even becomes a push-up hand. Yeah. And if you find, oh, I tried something and I got stuck, well, then try it again. And eventually, when things are soft and you have a better pathway of where to go, you can start to use momentum. Think that the hands from the shoulder blades could start to slide away from the shoulder blades onto the floor. When? There you go. Yep. And then you come to stand. And I think about it. If you were a little kid, which you are, deep within inside each one of us is a little kid. We have to find it because too many people have said things to us that try to take that away from us. Feel if you feel more potent or resilient or softer or longer or pliable. And then in your vertical, feeling how you stack, do you want to do the pum-pum-pums? Do you want to do walking on your tiptoes? Do you want to do, what is it you would do to explore something for me is different right now that feels better? That is like, wow, you see, I can restore this function. I don't have to live with this specific irritant. It's just a response to something not feeling as congruent, soft. And so on this note, I'll thank you for today and look forward, hopefully, if your schedule permits, for tomorrow.